The kingdom of Earth Realm is in danger. The evil forces are about to take over the planet Earth. But for that first, the rules are simple. We have to be defeated 10 consecutive times in the tournament. We already lost 9 times. This is our last chance. If the Warriors of the Good be defeated by the Warriors of Chansung, it's all over. This could be our salvation. This could be our doom. This could be the Mortal Kombat. Hello my gamer friends, this is your Citrus Guy here. My name is Cloud Citrangulo, and for today, very proudly, I bring you a review and analysis of Mortal Kombat for Super Nintendo version. I'm gonna talk a little about the game plot and a lot about the gameplay and compare with another versions. So let's get started. The first game of the series didn't have the look that we used to see in nowadays series. It looked like more the old movie of martial arts. We're gonna see the old China, Shaolin temples and Buddhist temples and this kind of stuff. The first influence that I would like to talk about is the movie Big Trouble in Little China. This big success of the 18th doesn't have too much about fighting, but have a lot about magic powers and other stuffs. The old wizards of old China and mythology and the magical powers teleport between other techniques will be very present in Mortal Kombat series. But the most important influence for Mortal Kombat was the movie Bloodsport. This big success of Jean-Claude Van Damme show how the fighters get extensive training and all the suffering that they take to prepare for the tournaments. But the tournament of the movie was more like a street fighting tournament with a lot of violence and blood, which was one of the big points of the movie and is also present in Mortal Kombat series. We will see that some techniques and movements are also present in Mortal Kombat. The first game of the series do not have the consolidated plot that you see in nowadays Mortal Kombat. To understand better, the Shao Kahn boss do not exist, or at least he is not mentioned in the game's plot. The plot take more focus on the wizard Shang Tsung and all the corruption that he brought to the tournament to try to conquer the kingdom of Earth Realm. This is how the planet Earth is called in this universe of Mortal Kombat. To do that, Shang Tsung has the fighter Goro, a half-human dragon from another kingdom, another universe. The universe of Mortal Kombat has a lot of gods, kingdoms, and universes. This is subject for another video. With Goro helps, Shang Tsung won the most of the tournaments. The last battle was against the Great Kung Lao, a Shaolin warrior that unfortunately was defeated by Goro. Now the tournament will be held again, and the planet Earth has a lot to lose. Which will be the warriors who will fight for salvation, and which will be the warriors who will fight for our doom? Liu Kang was a Shaolin warrior, member of the White Lotus Society. This organization was training warriors to represent the planet Earth on Mortal Kombat tournament. The Great Kung Lao one was these warriors. Now is Liu Kang. The game doesn't explain, but there is some certain hatred between Liu Kang and Shang Tsung. This story of this game is different from the other series, so this hatred is probably from the corruption and shame that Shang Tsung brings to the tournament. About his fighting style, Liu Kang has some advantage in air techniques. His flying kick technique that will be not present in other games of the series can be used to combine kicks and punches, some combos in the air. Johnny Cage in the beginning was meant to be Jean-Claude Van Damme himself, What in the end didn't work ended up in a character with similar characteristics and a plot more suitable for Mortal Kombat series. Basically, the story is that he's a good actor and an excellent martial arts fighter, and he entering the tournament shows that he's real good in the real life, not just in the movies. The story maybe isn't that good, but the character is excellent. About his mechanics, he's more effective in horizontal grounded attacks. His showdown kicks one of the best techniques of the game.
Kano.
Kano is a very dangerous criminal, member of the Black Dragon organization. It's not a surprise someone like him become an ally for Samsung, practically betraying the entire human race in the tournament. People like him only fights for fortune and power. About his fighting mechanics, he has an excellent rolling technique that also can be used as an anti-air attack.
Kano wins. Sonya.
Sonya is a member of US military forces. Her objective was to capture Kano and destroy the Black Dragon organization. She and her team followed up Kano to an uncharted island in Asia, but they were captured by Shansung's army. Now she's forced to enter the tournament to save the life of her friends. About her mechanics, she has advantage for growing attacks. Her grab leg technique can take longer than it looks. She also has an anti-air attack that is practically a teleport technique.
Sonya. Sub-Zero.
In this version of the game, his star was not consolidated yet. He has no name, he has no objective. Basically, he is a ninja from Lin Kuei clan, and he entered the tournament because he was paid for that. That's all. But he's also the most popular and playable character in the entire Mortal Kombat series, in my opinion. His techniques do not cause too much damage, but his freezing abilities give the player the opportunity to choose the best way to attack or make a combo in your opponent.
Sub-Zero wins. Scorpion.
The game doesn't explain if Scorpion is a spirit, a ghost, or any other thing. Basically, his story is about revenge. He was defeated by Sub-Zero because they were from opposite clans. But in my opinion, it's not a very good story. His hatred should be with the clan, not hatred for Sub-Zero. Sub-Zero is just a mercenary. He has nothing to do against Scorpion. About his mechanics, in my opinion, Scorpion is the best player in this version of the game. Yes, that's what you heard, the best, in my opinion, in this version of the game. If Sub-Zero can freeze your opponents to attack, Scorpion can capture and bring him to close, making your combo or the damage the way that you like. Also, his teleport punch is one of the best techniques of the entire Mortal Kombat series.
Raiden.
Raiden in some mythologies is the Warrior of the Thunder. He was invited by Shang Tsung to enter the tournament, and he do this just for vanity. In this version of the game, there wasn't that concept of Raiden doing intervention to save the human race against Shao Kahn. That's something that won't happen in the next game. About his techniques, the teleport ability adds the perfection, give you a big advantage against your opponents. Like Johnny Cage, he also has an advantage for grounded horizontal attacks because of his torpedo technique.
Raiden.
But what makes Mortal Kombat so successful? First point I would like to talk about is the graphic and styles. Pictures of actors, pre-rendered scenarios, clay dolls, add this to music and backgrounds of old martial arts movies. You bring another level of realism. It was so real, but so real that looks like if you are controlling a person in a movie. Alright, isn't that too much after all? But the game was so realistic that changed the way people used to look for video games at the time. About the violence, we're gonna talk in the end of the video.
Raiden.
But in my opinion, the most important factor that makes the success of Mortal Kombat is this simple mechanic system with new techniques never ever seen. To understand what I'm talking about, I'm gonna have to compare Mortal Kombat with another fighting series. I believe everyone knows which one it is. Already in that time, Street Fighter II was the game that defined the patterns that every fighting game should have used to gain success. Any game that do not use that patterns will be fated to fail. But Mortal Kombat it created its own patterns and make his own success. One of elements that make the success of Street Fighter was its great combo system, but it was also too complex. Too many buttons and movements just to master one character. But in Mortal Kombat, yet the combo system was not consolidated in this version, we have a easy game mechanic to master, a simple way to perform movements and techniques, and abilities to block or to avoid the enemy's attacks. We have two punch buttons, two kick buttons, throw-ins, special techniques, and a defense button. In my opinion, the defense button should be in all fighting games. It's a very good resource. The teleport technique appeared for the first time in Mortal Kombat with Raiden, not with Dhalsim in Street Fighter. The freezing techniques of Sub-Zero, the harpoon of Scorpion, between other techniques, are the difference and the success of Mortal Kombat between other fighting games. I read in a magazine about the creators of the Mortal Kombat that the idea was never to overpass Street Fighter. The idea was just to create something different. And as you can see, it really works. Mortal Kombat was created by Midway, but the home version was created by Acclaim, also with Scorpion software. As is tradition in home versions, we have the arcade mode versus, and we can change some configuration at the options. The most relevant to mention in the options is the difficult level, the quantity of damage at the hand camp, and the configuration of the buttons. There is also a strange configuration here in game mode. You can change to hand to hand. Hand to hand basically you remove the weapons, the special techniques in the versus mode. To tell you the truth, there is no versus mode. The tournament mode is the basic arcade mode. So if you want to play with two players, you have to enter against the player 1 or enter against the player 2. That's all. Like I mentioned before, the configuration hand to hand, avoid using weapons. What for the beginnings maybe it's a good thing, but in my opinion it's very boring because avoiding using the special techniques, all the characters have the same movement, the same punch, the same kick, and other things. Talking about the tournament mode, you can only choose one character to start your campaign. The beginning of campaign will be against the 7 playable characters, ending by your mirror match. The battle system is the traditional 2-round system. By the end of each battle, you can do a finish movement to end the battle. If you finish with Fatality, you gain more points.
Excellent. Liu Kang wins.
After the 7 battles, you enter into the entrance. Basically, the entrance is a round where you fight 2 consecutive fighters. In my opinion, Mortal Kombat creates the idea of entrance because there are only a few characters in the game. This way, the game will get longer and harder. In my opinion, I really like the idea of entrance, and I'm glad they keep that in the other games. After the 3rd entrance, then you face the first boss of the game, Goro. Let's not forget to talk about the bonus stage, where you have to test your might. You have to press the low and kick buttons very quickly, then finish with the defense button. The bonus stage do not change the battle plan, but give you more points. The final boss is Shang Tsung. In addition to his sorcery skills, he can also transform himself into any character of the game. That makes him one of the most powerful players in all Mortal Kombat series. Only after defeating Shang Tsung you will be able to see the ending of your character and his true motivation behind the tournament. Different from other fighting games, in Mortal Kombat you cannot put your initials at the end. These initials that appear are the name of the creators of the game. There is also a secret fighter in the game, Reptile. Reptile appears randomly, giving you messages so you can find him. The truth that messages are really difficult to understand, so let's just figure out how to face him in the game. In the 3 first battles you have to finish with Fatality, piece of cake. But then in the stage 4 you have to be in the stage of the pitch, that stage with a breed. In this stage you have to win with double flowers victory. This means that you cannot take any damage in the round that you win. If you lose a round, it's okay, but when you win the round you need perfection, you need the flawless victory. When you finish the opponent you need to use Fatality. Remember that pull down the character in the pitch doesn't count as Fatality. If the stage 4 is not the pitch stage, don't worry, you can face Reptile in another opportunity when you be in the stage of the pitch, but don't forget the double false victory and to finish with Fatality. Reptile is basically the combination of Sub-Zero and Scorpion. He has both techniques, and that's why he's green, because the combination of blue and yellow color. I really love to face secret characters. Secret characters is one of the trademarks of Mortal Kombat series. The Sega Genesis version was created by different developers, and I believe the idea was to create something completely different from the arcade and the Nintendo version. The good points of this version first would be the sprites. We have more cutscenes at the beginning and at the ending of the game, what in my opinion should have in the Nintendo version, and some movements and techniques are more realistic in this version too. The background was bigger and better used in this version too. Now the negative points. First, the fighters are too small, and some techniques don't catch at the expected time. The colors are a way outside from the latest tone we used to see in Mortal Kombat series. Some people prefer this version for having the blood and no blood version, but I believe that these little negative points I mentioned remove a lot of the realism of the game. In a general contest, the arcade version is the best of all. The graphics are awesome, the songs are very good, although some I consider have a better acoustic in the Nintendo version, and it's possible to make more combos than all the home versions. On the other hand, some techniques have defects. You can flying kick is too high, sometimes passing over the opponent. Scorpion's teletransporting sometimes corner him instead of attacking the opponent from behind. The fighter's audio and the background music are not in harmony. The music is overshared by the fighter's screams. It's not possible to appreciate both with the good intensity and good acoustic. The time to make the fatalities is very short. If you make a mistake, it's over. Talking now about a more polemic topic would be the violence. I know the idea of the game was to bring in violence to the world of video games, and I know that today games are much more violent than this version of Mortal Kombat, but for that time it was something very intensive and heavy. It was not common to see blood in video games. But I think that not all the blood that I used to donate through all the entire year would be the same amount of blood coming out the same character and the same round of Mortal Kombat. The Nintendo filtered the violence of the game, starting with the blood, replacing by sweat. Well, I think it was sweat. There was a friend of mine saying it was orange juice. And you? What did you call it that get out of the fighter? Leave a message at the comments, please. In the Pitch X scenario, all the bodies and blood were removed. Did you guys know these corpses are in fact the creators of the game? Some fatalities also have changed, in particular with the Sub-Zero, which in my opinion was very violent. Now gain a more appearance focused on his freezing techniques.
Sub-Zero wins.
Almost forgetting to talk about the difficult level, which is too high. I think they didn't want you to get to the end of the game, or at least they want you to expend a lot of coins to get to the end of the game. The level of difficulty increases a lot when we enter into the entrances. The impression is that the machine reads your mind because it deflects or defends almost off all your blow. The amount of damage the boss cause is very unfair, and Goro has very few brackets for you to hit him. Reptile appears to be in the turbo mode, very fast. We almost can't concentrate to fight against him. To fight against him, it was also much more harder than the Nintendo version. First, you need to win more than 40 battles. I say battles, not rounds. But you don't need necessarily to get to the end of the game, but you need to win these 40 battles. After that, when you arrive at the speed stage, you'll see some sharps passing the moon. It may be Santa Claus, it may be a witch or some other things, but only when you see these symbols passing through the moon that we know that we can fight against Reptile. In the arcade version, it's more difficult to face Reptile, because in the bridge fight you cannot use the defense button, which is very bad since several game techniques need the defense button, including some fatalities. For such reasons, in the arcade version, not all the characters could fight against Reptile. These, among other game defects, were fixed in the Super Nintendo version. For these reasons, I recommend playing the Nintendo version before playing the arcade version. Comparing the graphics, we see that in the arcade version we have the fighters in a bigger size and the background set full of details. In the version of Nintendo, the fighters are in small size. On the other hand, we have a greater scope of the fighting space, and the backgrounds and scenarios are not very detailed. In the Sega version, we have the most reduced fighters yet, but we have more space and coverage, and we have backgrounds with more details than the Nintendo version. First positive point of the game would be the levels of difficulty. Good levels for both beginners and more experienced players. The second would be the speed of the game that's a little lower than the arcade version, which in my opinion is a good thing to combine better with the game system. The third will be a simpler and more sophisticated mechanics than the other fighting games, with incredible and innovative super techniques and defense and avoidance movements. A combo system easy to perform, mostly aerial combos. And to finalize, all the corrections and effects of the arcade version, either to perform attacks or fatality, or to face Reptile. First negative point would be the controls, which do not respond instantaneously in some cases. For example, the slide kick of Sub-Zero. When you press diagonal to make that blow, you cannot repeat the same direction. You have to press another direction before you repeat the technique. This also happens with other techniques in the game. Another defect would be the lack of reality of some techniques. Very example would be the Scorpion's Harpoon. If the harpoon reaches the opponent before Sub-Zero Ice or some other technique of the type, this will be concealed, and only the first to arrive will be executed. This does not happen in another versions of the game. Another factor would be the lack of movement variation. As I mentioned in the options in the hand-to-hand mode, everyone has the same way of throwing, punches, and kicks, which perhaps is the goal of the creators of the game, that the characters were equal at this point. But I see as a negative point. They should have more differentiated movements, although Raiden is faster than the others, and some characters have more advantage to execute throw-ins to say that they are not all equal. To finish, we have the problem of being cornered. If you are cornered, it would be the right death, because the CPU will punch you endlessly. You cannot defend and you cannot kick the enemy. In this version of the game, will depend on your luck.
Wins. Sonya. Sub-Zero. Scorpion. Liu Kang. Raiden. Kano. Johnny Cage.
Mortal Kombat is the game that popularized the violence in the video games. But Mortal Kombat is much more than a violent game. Note that even with the filter of violence that Nintendo has made, which I very approve, the game has not lost its magic and its fun. I tell all the gamers that set aside the violence that happens in games and focus on the differential of the game. But what is the differential of Mortal Kombat? A game with a simple mechanics and super technical, striking characters and incredible scenarios. This is the differential of Mortal Kombat, and it's following this that you will become true gamers and not just a zombie in front of video game. It's because of that and other things I said, Mortal Kombat is and always will be one of the best games and one of the best fighting game series of the whole history of video games. Thank you my gamer friends for seeing the entire video. If you like it, please press the like button and subscribe on the channel. These analysis videos take a lot of time and work to be made, but I make sure to do it because it's something that makes me close to you guys. Please leave a comment about the game or the video, and see you guys in the next video. May God be with you.